Boris Johnson is many things. Father, shagger, elitist twat. But is he also an SEO genius? Is the UK Prime Minister talking crap in interviews to game Google search results? Or is he just a fool? Well, like Natalie Imbruglia in the 90s, I'm torn. So let's investigate. Part 1. What's the conspiracy? Here's a timeline of events and seemingly random statements from Boris and the impact they had on Google search results. June 2019. Boris was asked what he likes to do in his spare time and replied,
I have a thing where I make models of buses.
People online claimed he did this to distract us from the now infamous NHS Brexit Bus. After the interview, Googling Boris Johnson bus led to articles about his quirky hobby and not the Brexit bus scandal. September 2019. Boris gave a speech at the police academy, no, not that one, with the police behind him talking about the police. No, not that one. Editor Simon is getting on my last nerve today. And directly after, results for Boris Johnson police no longer showed the police were called out to a domestic argument between him and his wife Carrie Symonds. November 2021. Boris started waxing lyrical about Peppa Pig World when he appeared to lose his place during a speech. This changed the search results for Britain Pigs from this, where the top results were negative stories about the government, to this, which has, to say the least, a much different vibe. So it's clear Boris likes to go off script, but is it because he's a bumbling fool, or is this all a calculated plan? Part 2. Dead cat strategy. Dead catting is a political strategy of deliberately introducing a shocking or important story to divert press or social media conversation away from problems or failures in other areas. The term actually originates from a 2013 article written by Johnson himself. He calls it the Hail Mary move of politics, to be brought out only when an argument is lost or all facts are overwhelmingly against you. Another fun word for all facts being overwhelmingly against you is "you're wrong." Or to directly quote him,
there is one thing that is absolutely certain about throwing a dead cat on the dining room table. The key point, says my Australian friend, is that everyone will shout, geez mate, there's a dead cat on the table. In other words, they will be talking about the dead cat, the thing you want them to talk about, and they will not be talking about the issue that has been causing you so much grief.
In other words, he's more than happy to throw someone, dead or alive, under one of his painted buses, if it takes attention away from something he's done wrong. It means trying to get him to take accountability for anything is harder than trying to staple dog shit to a rainbow. By saying he paints wine boxes to look like buses, Boris knows journalists are going to cover that story. And the keywords for Boris and buses will change, even in the short term. Part 3. Boris and the press. Before I go any further, I do want to pause and acknowledge the fact that I am starting to sound like a nutjob on 4chan who thinks Disney created Disney on Ice to hide the rumour that Walt Disney was frozen so he could come back to life in the future. It's clearly not true. Walt Disney was cut up into millions of tiny pieces and eaten by Mickey and Minnie in a sacrifice to Satan. We all know this to be true. And it's also true that you can't search for Disney on Ice or Disney Frozen without getting the stage show or the film. It's true these theories come from the same seed of an idea. And I'd love to sit here and pretend there's not a strong link. But correlation does not equal causation, Barry. Boris has a weird relationship with the press. As a former journalist himself who was fired for lying and making up quotes, he is very aware of the stress and strain online publications are under. With their ad rates dropping faster than crypto prices, Google even had to publish a blog explaining why they're earning less. On top of that, there's a massive lack of trust from the general public, thanks to polarizing clickbait headlines. Here's looking at you, BuzzFeed. Most journalists are constantly looking for anything to publish to bring in the views to justify their salary, and they know that silly articles do just that. Part 4. How fast does Google update? In order to know if this conspiracy theory has legs, we need to know more about how Google works. Google doesn't tell us everything about how their algorithm operates, but there are some things we know for certain. The news section of Google, not unlike most clubbers in the 90s, is all about speed. The latest articles come up first because they're deemed to be the most relevant. In a bid to show us the most recent posts, some accuracy is lost in trying to just match keywords to the most recently published posts. When you're all about speed, you're not always going to have a great trip. Article. This analogy's broken down. The way they ensure that not every Tom, Dick and Harry's blog can appear in Google News is that only Google verified publications can get in. That's why you never see my blog, opinionatedwhiteman.org.uk on Google News, but you can continue to see my videos appear on your newsfeed if you hit the like button and subscribe right now. So by having relevant keywords in the article's headline from an official Google News approved website, in this example, Boris and Bus, Google is likely to show the latest articles and push down older ones, even if older only means 24 hours ago. On top of this, click-through rate is one of the biggest variables to decide which articles come up first in the ranking. I'm looking at you again, BuzzFeed. They're like cheese to my computer mouse. Part 5. So is he saying stuff to manipulate Google search results? Maybe, but probably not. We will never know if this is true unless his former chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, or his current political advisor, Lynton Crosby, come forward and tell us. Oh, do you remember earlier on in the video where I quoted Boris and he mentioned his Australian friend? Yeah, shockingly, that isn't Natalie Imbruglia. That's political strategist Sir Lynton Crosby, who has previously been described as the master of dark political arts and the Wizard of Oz.
Fun fact, did you know that a munchkin hung himself at the end of the Wizard of Oz because he was so depressed?
Dude! Firstly, no they didn't. And secondly, one conspiracy theory at a time. Ultimately, everything Boris says will be covered by the press, so it wouldn't surprise me if he was trying to game the system that he knows fairly well. But in reality, I think something more sinister is at play, namely his persona. Part 6. Online personas. We all create online personas, partly because it's impossible for us to share every moment of our lives online, for now. What we see, or more to the point, what we don't see, will inform our opinions and worldviews. For the past decade, politicians have been using social media to game the system, either legally through building their own audience, or illegally through Cambridge Analytica. Until recently, Rishi Sunak had the highest approval rating of any MP, thanks in no small part to Cass Horowitz from the Clerkenwell brothers rebranding him online. Trump used Twitter extensively before, during and after his campaign to rally his troops, but the less said on that, the better. And before that, Obama spent years building up a personal brand that led to him becoming president. MPs' social media channels are usually dreadful to say the least, but even these poor grainy photos tell us a story about who hit the upload button, or who we're told hit the upload button. We've all known for a long time that persona and branding are very important assets in who we trust and therefore who we vote for. And with parasocial relationships on the rise, I can see more wannabe PMs following in this trend.
What's a parasocial relationship?
Parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships. One person invests all the emotional labour, interest and time, while the other side, the persona, doesn't even know they exist.
Oh, like me and my dad.
Oh dude, give me a hug. Boris's social media heavily leans into what he thinks makes him look like a bumbling man of the people. It reminds me of the Mark Twain quote, "Never let the truth get in the way of a good story." In 6 months' time, most of us won't remember every policy we hate, but we will remember the stupid stories and quotes which help us build up a persona around Johnson as a lovable, bumbling buffoon. And all of those articles reinforce that persona. So no, I don't think he's gaming Google's search results, but I do think he's doing something much worse in the same playground. Godspeed, I'll see you all next week.